Greetings and welcome to the Breakdowns NBA Power Rankings for the 2015-2016 season. I'm Cale Hammond. I'm joined by the Big Swede, Nathan Svensson. Nate, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be back working on the breakdown. It's been a while, and I'm excited to talk about some basketball.
And basketball's almost here, less than a month. It's less than a month away. I see the ticker countdown on NBA TV. They've got that going on pretty much all the time. So let's just jump right in. Let's start. We got your bottom feeders. We're going to bring you 30 through 26 in this segment. Let's get it started. Where else can we start but in good old Philadelphia? When looking at their roster, they just don't have any chance of winning more than 18, 20 games, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And I mean, if we had been doing this power ranking for the past several years, they would be 30 for like the past 4 or 5 years.
For at least the past 4 years. At some point, eventually, they have to be good. This is going to turn around. They're not going to keep sucking forever. And their GM's probably going to look pretty cool. He's going to be like, hey, yeah, check that out. But at what cost to your fans and to your organization? Just this, they've been the laughingstock of the league for such a long time that at this point, even if you do have some marginal success out of it, is it really worth putting your fans through 6 years of torture?
Exactly. And like at this point, I'm not even sure if it's going to work. I mean, he's been the tank commander for the past 5 years, right? And they've just been like a level of awfulness that we haven't seen in the NBA ever, I don't think. And I just don't know what they have to show it. It seems like all their high draft picks have been big guys. I mean, I'm interested to see how Jaleel is going to play in the NBA. I think Nerlens Noel is a decent prospect, but like, who else is on that team? Tony Allen's out for a long time. Like, how many other players can we even name? It's a revolving.
Well, I'll name them right now. I'll start with number one, point guard Tony Wroten, or guard, shooting guard. They list him as a point guard / shooting guard. He is a shooting guard. Part of their problems last year stemmed when he was the point guard. He's not fit to run an offense. He's a slasher. He loves to chuck the ball. Christian Wood, don't know who that is. Scottie Wilbekin, point guard from Florida, right? Is that him?
Right.
And
he's a decent player, but he's small. He's not that athletic. I don't think he's an NBA player.
Well, yeah, exactly. He's a decent player, but there's a difference between a decent player and an NBA player. Physically, I don't think he's quite got the tools to cut. He looked decent in summer ball. JP Tokoto, freak athlete from the UNC Tar Heels. Just another great long athlete. They're trying to stockpile guys with high potential. Hollis Thompson, Nick Stauskas. I'm not sure what that acquisition was all about. I'm not sure if they're expecting him to be a star or what the deal is with him. I think Nick Stauskas is a fine player, but as far as NBA talent goes, I mean, there's a lot of other guys that I would rather have than him.
I mean, bottom line, it's just not a good roster. At some point, they're going to have to go out and get some veteran free agents. But what veteran free agents are going to even want to come there? If I'm a guy in my late 20s, early 30s in the NBA trying to go somewhere, if Philly offers me a big contract and literally anybody else offers me a big contract, I will go literally anywhere else just because it's been such an awful culture for so long.
And it's why another thing, speaking of that culture, it's really sad for Jahlil Okafor, who has the potential to be one of the better players in the NBA, one of the more dominant big men we've seen since maybe Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan. He's got that sort of potential, but where's his leadership? Is Carl Landry and Furkan Aldemir going to show him the ropes? I just don't understand quite what they're doing. There's no reason to spend too long talking about the Philadelphia 76ers, but we've got them in our 30 spot, and I think we can expect to see just a very chaotic-looking group of guys out there on the basketball court, chucking up a lot of threes, giving up a lot of offensive rebounds. Fantasy basketball players, once again, look to target big men against Philadelphia, even with Nerlens Noel in there. Let's move on. 29, we have the Portland Trailblazers. And all I've got to say for the Portland Trailblazers, one of their hallmarks the last several years is that they had one of, if not the best, most solid, well-functioning starting fives in the NBA. And now you take away Robin Lopez, you take away LaMarcus Aldridge, Nick Batum's in Charlotte, Wesley Matthews is in Dallas. The only starter they keep is Damian Lillard. My goodness, this roster is in rough shape. What are your thoughts?
I think we can expect Damian Lillard to just be chucking this year because who else is on? Like he's got no one else. He's gonna be the primary ball handler, scorer, distributor. He's gonna put up a lot of shots, which is gonna be interesting from a fantasy perspective. But in terms of wins and losses, they lost four of their top five players, and I just don't know if any team can recover from that in this day and age. I mean, you just got to feel bad for Portland fans at this point because they have like an exciting young team. It seemed like a very tight, cohesive roster, but it just kind of all went to crap this off season. So you got to feel bad for those guys on Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, it certainly didn't work out very well for Portland. And the knock on Portland was that while they had this starting five, they had the absolute worst bench in the NBA. So Here's what happens. They have the best starting five, the worst bench. Take away 4 out of the 5 starters. They're still left with the worst bench, but you take away the starters. It's not looking good. Damian Lillard, one of my favorite guys in the league, can shoot from anywhere in the gym. Very confident guy. Wants to win more than anything, but this is just not his year. Unless this team hits just a chemistry jackpot, I think we're definitely looking at one of the clear bottom feeders of this season.
Totally agree. And I think the one thing I am excited is to see how C.J. McCollum plays. Because he's done all right in limited minutes, but he's had some injury issues. I guess keep an eye out for him, but don't expect much out of the Blazers this year.
Don't expect anything out of Portland. They're sort of a sob story. Let's move on. 28, we have the Denver Nuggets. There's some interesting storylines. Emmanuel Mudiay's a rookie year. He's a rookie point guard in the West. Not sure how that's going to work out. The West is just such a slaughterhouse, especially for a rookie point guard. Man, the learning curve is incredibly steep.
Yeah, going from China to Steph Curry is going to be quite the difference for Emmanuel Mudiay. I think he's a talented player, obviously very athletic. One of the highest rated recruits coming out of high school, but I think it would have been better for him to go to the NCAA. It's a little more organized, a little better picture of what he might face in the NBA, but I think he's going to have a rough transition.
Yusuf Nurkic can't stay out of foul trouble. Jameer Nelson is no longer good. Kenneth Faried, in my opinion, is a total head case. Your boy Papa Nicolau didn't quite work out in Houston the way we thought it was going to. And then Gallinari, who can't stay healthy and no longer tries. So that's all about I've got for this Denver roster. If you've got anything else to add, but I think we're looking at one of the clear, especially in the Western Conference. They're just going to be a punching bag.
It's gonna, yeah. I mean, these bottom tier Western teams they're just gonna get beat up on. It's a bloodbath out there. I think there's like 9 or 10 really good teams in the West, and if you're not in that 10-team mix, it's going to be rough, and Denver's definitely going to lose a lot of games this year.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's move on. 27, Orlando Magic. And this is the one thing I'm going to say about Orlando before I pass it over to you. Nick Vucevic is not a viable plan, especially in the East when you've got good big guys, fast big guys, physical big guys, Hassan Whiteside, Al Horford, Gortat and Nene for Washington, Al Jefferson, all these guys in their divisions. When looking at 66 eligible centers in real plus minus the statistics, so basically how good are you? Are you a plus for your team or are you a negative for your team? Nick Vucevic ranks 53rd out of 66 eligible centers with our boy Enes Kanter rounding out the list at 66.
We'll have plenty to talk about old Enes when the time comes.
Yeah, when the time comes, indeed. Probably when we're doing the top 5, when we got Oklahoma City sliding in there.
Yeah, that's an exciting team to look forward to. But I think Vooch is an interesting player because he has some good fundamentals. He rebounds well, and he's a pretty decent player on the offensive end. But he's just awful at defense. Garbage
defender. Playing daily fantasy basketball, you just target centers against Orlando because no matter what stat line Vucevic puts up, he seems to give up more than he clearly, based on the plus minus, he gives up more than he puts in.
I think Vooch could be well served as like a third or fourth option some point later in his career, but Orlando simply just doesn't have other players to put the ball in the hoop. I know you're going to talk about Tobias Harris, so I'll let you go ahead on that.
Yep, and Tobias Harris, no one's questioning his talent level, physical ability. It's about time for him to string together a consistent 16.7 rebound season with no peaks and valleys, no hiccups, no ups and downs. I think he's in his fourth year in the league. It's time to string it together, and it's time to get paid because he already got paid. It's time to earn his money, and he's important for this team. He's going to be a focal point. I just don't know. I'm a little worried about Tobias. I thought he was going to be a lot better after his rookie season. He really hasn't improved the way I'd like to see him, quite frankly.
Yeah, he strikes me as a player, one of those players that puts up good numbers on a bad team, so it kind of makes him look a little better than he is. I don't remember the exact statistic, but I remember reading a Zach Lowe piece talking about how he's one of the worst passers in the NBA, just in terms of if he gets the ball, he's not passing it, he's going to try to score. And while he's a good player, I mean, we've seen consistently that teams that move the ball, that get all players involved, like the Spurs, like the Warriors, like the Hawks, are the ones that are successful in the NBA. So it's tough to have a player like Tobias. So maybe he'll learn, maybe he'll get better, but he just doesn't have the pieces around him to make that team any good.
No, he does not. Let's move on to 26. We have our Los Angeles Lakers. Nate, is this Kobe's last year in the league, or is this Kobe's last year as a Laker? What do you think?
Well, I think it's definitely his last year as a Laker. I could see him kind of doing the ring-chasing thing, going to a contender that needs him. But either way, this is going to be a swan song year for him on the Lakers. He's going to put up 25 shots a game, which is fine in 08, 09 when he was, before he got hurt and he was still hitting shots. But with this team and him doing that, they're not going to win a lot of games. Although I will say I think the addition of Roy Hibbert is very interesting. If he can return to the form that he had when Indiana was competing for the Eastern Conference Championship, it could be a good addition because he was a good player, but he's really kind of taken a nosedive.
He gets a bad rap. He just gets hated on. He's got a bad rap. He's not as bad as people think he is. Just because he had I don't know, that season where he kept giving goose eggs, and it was his breakout year. It was supposed to be the year where Hibbert started dominating, and he kept giving just horrible 0.2 rebound, 12-minute performances. So Randall and Russell, two rookies, big question marks. I think their success hinges on how these guys play. D'Angelo Russell, point guard in the West, it's going to be tough for him. Also, they have Jordan Clarkson. What do you think the dynamic's going to be like with Jordan Clarkson and D'Angelo Russell? What's Jordan Clarkson going to do? Is he going to slide over to the shooting guard?
That's what I've heard, and I think Jordan Clarkson is a good player. I mean, he showed a lot of good flashes as a second-round draft pick last year. So I think it's in the best interest of both him and the Lakers for Byron Scott to give him a lot of time because he can play, but I just don't know if his ideal position is at the two guard because he's a ball dominant player, very good at attacking the hoop and setting up his teammates. So that's something they'll have to work out, and who knows how many shots he's going to even get because Kobe's going to be putting up a lot. D'Angelo's going to be the primary point guard. So I think it could be a tough year for him, even though I do think he's a good player.
Well, Jordan Clarkson might not get a shot off because Kobe Bryant posts around 33% usage rate. Nick Young looked it up when Kobe was off the floor, 27.4 usage rate. And Lou Williams, reigning Sixth Man of the Year, his usage rate in Toronto was 26.9 when he was on the floor. That all adds up to 87.3. So my question is, who else is going to shoot the ball?
Not Jordan Clarkson.
I just don't. I mean, all three of those guys I just listed pride themselves in taking uncontested jumpers. Holy moly. It's going to be – I made a funny meme sent it in. I got a picture of a black hole, and I photoshopped Kobe Bryant, Lou Williams, and Nick Young all shooting basketballs into that black hole, because I think that's more or less what we're going to see from the Los Angeles Lakers this year. A lot of bad shots being taken.
A lot of bad shots, not a lot of wins. So it'll be an interesting year to see if they can develop their young guys. But moral of the story, Kobe Swan song, he's going to be jacking up shots, and I think they're clearly in the bottom tier of the Western Conference.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up the bottom 5 teams 30 through 26 in your NBA. Thank you so much for joining me, Nate. Hopefully you tune in for our 25 through 21 coming up next week.
Yep, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.